In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the creator while I start building a castle in our Minecraft world. I did use a tutorial for the castle, its link will be in the description below. Spoilers ahead. It really is a shame the creator is not performing well in the box office because it's such a great film. Perhaps in the future it will gain its niche following and become a cult classic similarly to The Blade Runner, The Princess Bride, or Oblivion. Everything from the CGI and the pacing all the way to the soundtrack and the acting is exceptional. The VFX department used their budget to its fullest potential. The artists behind the creator get my genuine thumbs up. And Madeline Univoyles did great in her breakout role, Alfie. It's always nice to see new talent in the film industry because it's not very often child stars capture the right level of emotion in their performances. Madeline and John David Washington both did outstanding jobs. John is gold in this movie, adding such a fun energy to every line, like when he calls Alfie a weirdo. The soundtrack is solid and not super intrusive. However, what really caught my attention was the needle drops. Often, needle drops don't really fit the vibe of the movie or are too intrusive, as seen in movies like Suicide Squad or The Gray Man. However, the creator uses tracks like Claire de Lune and Everything in Its Right Place to their fullest potential. Both are very well timed and help enhance the story. Every time Everything in Its Right Place comes on, I think it's part of the soundtrack before remembering a pre-existing song. The jokes are another thing I think did well. Most of them were delivered perfectly by their actors or actresses, and the jokes never cut into emotionally deep scenes, unlike some movies. I've noticed between Rogue One and the creator, Gareth Edwards really likes to use situation and Socratic irony in his jokes. They're never crazy hilarious unless you're paying attention, and they rarely cut into the scene. I guess what I'm trying to say is the humor is used to enhance rather than take away from the story. One more thing before we move on to the story, I really want Lego sets for this movie. The sprinting bomb robot thing and the spaceship that the simulants used to attack the beach hut and capture Josh are both really cool. The American tank towards the end looks awesome as well, but sadly they'll likely never be made unless this movie gets more popular. Alright, on to the story now. 10 to 12 years after Los Angeles was subject to a nuclear warhead, the US has launched a war on AI, whom they believe are the cause of the destruction. They sent Joshua to New Asia to steal intel and find out the location of Nirmada, the creator of modern AI. In the process of gaining intel, Joshua falls in love with Maya, a native that was raised by the group of simulants. They settled down and resided in a beach hut whilst expecting a newborn child. One evening, Joshua and Maya are disturbed by a raid. US soldiers are coming to kill Nirmada. When Maya tries to flee, Joshua tries reasoning, asking her to stay. He asks, "They're not here for you, they're here for them. They're not real, Maya. This is real. You and I are real." Those were some of his last words before the nomad strikes the beach, killing his wife. 5 years after the raid, Josh is slaving away. He cleans up LA of its radiation and then goes home and swims, watches TV, and reminisces on his good times with Maya. He wasn't happy with his life now that Maya was gone, but at least he didn't have to deal with the AI, simulants, or the government anymore. That is until they show up to his house to ask him to join them for one last effort to end the war. At this point in the story, Joshua doesn't care for AI. He just sees them as the monsters that blew up his family, his way of life, and he doesn't care for the government either. They stormed his home and blew up where he had been living for the past year without warning, killing his wife in the process. At least that's what he thought. They showed him a recent photo of a lab that they believe Maya was at. They needed Joshua's help to break in and destroy a superweapon named Alpha O. This weapon was rumored to destroy the Nomad and the rest of humanity. Josh took them up on the offer, but really only because the possibility that his wife lived on. For those wondering, NOMAD stands for North American Orbital Mobile Aerospace Defense. I personally am terrible at making acronyms that sound cool and make sense. I think NOMAD does both. The Nomad is a massive space station that launches multiple missiles from the upper atmosphere to ground targets with insane precision and does tons of area damage in the process. Before the Nomad strikes, Josh's team needs to kill Alpha O and get out of range of the missiles. One of the soldiers on Joshua's team gets a little ambitious and holds a puppy at gunpoint, hoping the locals give up the location of the lab. Before the dog dies, however, Joshua finds a monument that opens the door to the lab. It doesn't feel a little like Deus Ex Machina, but I'm gonna chalk it up to the fact that Joshua lived and grew with the simulant culture rather than luck and coincidence. Once in the lab, things go south. Robot police show up, many soldiers die, and the Nomad homing beacon is activated a little too early, leaving Joshua alone to explore the innards of a vault. This vault is believed to hold the weapon, but Josh only sees a TV and a chair. Alpha O, the AI superweapon said to destroy the Nomad, is a kid. Joshua can't bring himself to kill it. He stares at it in astonishment, but only for a brief moment before he's shot down and the kid gets up and leaves. Brings me to one of the few things that bug me about this movie, the weapons. Sometimes the energy-based bullets can pierce through the thick metal of robots and simulants, but not through Joshua's armor as seen in the vault scene. The bullets sometimes shatter glass, other times it leaves no mark on civilian vehicles. The explosions are also inconsistent, sometimes blowing up a whole ship with a huge fireball as it smashes into the ground, and later the same tech will explode 3 people with no fireball and hurting very little of its environment. It's a minor detail but an impactful one. If a universe makes a rule, it must stick to it. The rule is believable and enjoyable until it is broken, and then it's very hard to gain the audience's trust back. Joshua catches back up with the weapon. He's in a house having a power struggle with a kid. He eventually unplugs the TV to further grasp the kid's attention. After asking where Maya is, to which the kid replies with the word Diandon, Josh is then interrupted by an old simulant who attempts to kill him, but fails. Joshua then distracts the kid by saying that the man is only off, not dead, like the TV. This starts the bond between Josh and the kid, whom is eventually named Alfie, instead of Candy, like the kid wanted. Whenever Josh has to do the hard thing and temporarily shut down simulants, he confronts Alfie saying, "Stand by, not off." This is his way of letting her know everything is going to be okay. We are going to be okay. He says this before deactivating Alfie's caretaker and friend Haran, and also before shuffling Alfie onto the Nomad. Joshua refusing to kill Alfie makes him a fugitive. On their way to Diandon, Joshua and Alfie are being hunted by the police. They stop by to visit an old friend to get information on a tracker and Alfie. After some exploding ice cream goes off, Josh and Alfie head to the old beach hut where they get captured by simulants Josh used to know. These simulants bring Josh to a village. It's at this village where Joshua learns the nuclear explosion in LA was human error, not AI. The AI just took the blame because the New Asia higher-ups put the blame on them. The AI only want to live in peace, only making Alfie to get rid of the Nomad and other weapons used against the AI. They never wanted to hurt people, only doing so when given orders. Eventually, an American tank shows up and wreaks havoc on the village, sending in sprinting bomb robot thingamabobs and guided missile strikes, forcing Joshua and Alfie to leave, but they are now on their way to Diandon. Diandon means heaven, which Alfie didn't know how to say at the time, as seen in this conversation with Joshua earlier in the film.
What's heaven?
It's a peaceful place in the sky.
Are you going to heaven?
No. You gotta be a good person to go to heaven.
So, we're the same. We can't go to heaven because you're not good. And I'm not a person.
Alfie said that Maya was in Diandon because Maya was technically dead, but really just in a coma, limbo between life and death. Only alive because the machine's keeping her so. Maya's soul was in heaven, but her body was not, waiting for its ending. Maya was Nirmata, like her father before her, which is why the simulants couldn't kill her, their creator. Maya created Alfie, who is actually a robotic copy of Josh's lost kid, but with gained powers to turn machines on and off. Alfie is different from the other simulants. She can grow up and her powers grow exponentially with her age. Joshua and Alfie pull the plug on Maya's life support after saying their final goodbyes. The Americans show up and take Alfie and complete a brain scan of Maya. A simulant then blows up the Americans. Joshua holds onto Maya's conscious in form of a hard drive in hopes of talking to her again. He saves Alfie and flies her up to the Nomad where they plant explosives. Alfie places Maya's brain scan in an inactive simulant and drags the body towards the escape pod. She ends up dropping the simulant because Joshua is running out of oxygen. Alfie gets an escape pod ready, but it's attacked by a machine, which Joshua stops, but only after the door gets jammed shut. Running out of time, Joshua and Alfie say their final tearful goodbyes. "I'm going to heaven. I'm going because of you. I don't want to go. I want to be with you. I love you, Alfie. I love you too." After Joshua sends Alfie away, he goes to a field of wheat, where he gets his final wish, one last moment with his wife. He apologizes for lying to Maya. He can now live in peace knowing she died honorably, as opposed to just being blown up in cold blood by the Nomad. The female general and many other humans show zero respect for the AI, fixing them just to get information out of them and then killing them. Unlike the other Americans, Joshua spends the film around simulants, getting to know them, feeling their pain, and through this, sympathizes with them. Joshua begins to love Alfie. After all, it is his child, just in robot form. By the end of the movie, Joshua goes from hating AI for killing his parents to fighting on their behalf. He goes from saying they're not real, they don't feel anything, to thinking of Alfie's incineration as a funeral. Joshua now sees eye to eye with the simulants, and it's really beautiful to see his story arc. That sums up my thoughts on The Creator. If you enjoyed today's video, I ask you drop a like and share with your fellow movie lovers. And if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and see what you think. Your own opinion will always, sometimes, be more important than mine. Next week's video is going to be on WALL-E, so subscribe so you don't miss out on that.
What's your name, Lil Sim? What do they call you? What do you like?
Candy.
Hell no, pick something else.